There are moments in life when you look at your struggles and ask, why me? Why did I have to cross paths with this person? Why did I have to endure this pain? Why did God allow this suffering into my life? And if you've ever dealt with a narcissist, you've probably asked yourself these very questions. But let me tell you something right now. God does not make mistakes. He placed you in that situation for a reason. Not to destroy you, not to break you, but to shape you into the person you were always meant to be. See, a narcissist believes they are the center of the universe. They think they are untouchable, unstoppable, and immune to consequences. But then God sent you with your heart, your integrity, your light, and trust me, that was no accident. A narcissist spends their entire life constructing a false image of themselves, an illusion carefully designed to mask their deep insecurities, fears, and inadequacies. They walk through the world wearing a mask of confidence, superiority, and charm, convincing everyone around them that they are untouchable. But beneath that polished exterior lies something fragile, something they fight desperately to keep hidden. And then one day you enter their life. You with your authenticity, you with your unwavering spirit, you with your ability to see people for who they truly are. You, without even trying, become the mirror they never wanted to look into. You reflect back to them all the things they have worked so hard to deny. The mask they've spent years perfecting begins to crack under the weight of your presence. Every time they manipulate, you see through it. Every time they lie, you recognize the deception. Every time they try to assert dominance, you remain steady, refusing to play their game. And this is their worst nightmare, because a narcissist thrives on illusion. But you deal in truth. They sense something different about you, something they can't quite control. They test you, watching carefully to see if you'll break under their manipulation. They throw their usual tactics at you, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, silent treatment, but somehow you don't respond the way they expect. And that terrifies them, because most people don't challenge them. Most people accept their false reality, play along with their games, and feed their need for control. But you force them to see what they have spent a lifetime avoiding. You make them face the emptiness inside. You remind them that they are not as powerful as they believe. And they hate that. They hate you for making them feel exposed, for showing them the truth they refuse to accept. They lash out, they blame, they twist the narrative, anything to avoid accountability. But deep down, they know. They know you see them for who they really are. And that is something they can never forgive. A narcissist thrives on control. Their entire existence is built around the idea that they must dominate, manipulate, and orchestrate the people around them to feed their own fragile ego. They believe they are the puppet master, pulling the strings, deciding who gets to rise and who must fall. And for a long time, this strategy works until you show up. See, you were never meant to follow their script. You weren't designed to be another piece in their game. You weren't sent into their life to bow down, to obey, or to validate their illusions. No, you were placed there for something greater. You were sent to challenge their control. And that, my friend, is why they feel so threatened by you. From the moment they crossed paths with you, something felt different, something they couldn't quite put their finger on. At first, they may have been drawn to your strength, your confidence, your presence, but soon they realized something dangerous. You are not easily controlled. They tried their usual tactics. They tested your limits, used their charm, played their games, pushed your buttons. But unlike the others, you didn't crumble. You didn't fall into their traps, didn't let them dictate your worth, didn't allow them to pull you into their toxic cycle, and that drove them mad. Because a narcissist relies on compliance. They need people who will question themselves, people who will second-guess their reality, people who will shrink in the face of their demands. But when they met you, they met someone who refused to be manipulated, someone who stood firm, spoke truth, and refused to be controlled. And so they fought harder. They tried new tactics, increased their efforts, tested your patience, hoping, praying that eventually you would break. But each time they tried to tighten their grip, you only pulled away. You refused to be caged, refused to let their control define you. And in that refusal, you became something they never expected. You became free. And here's the thing about freedom, it's contagious. The moment they saw that they couldn't control you, they realized something even more terrifying. Others might see it too. Your strength, your resistance, your refusal to play their game. It sends a message to everyone around you. It exposes the narcissist for what they truly are. It forces them to confront the reality that their power is not as absolute as they believed. So they lash out, they double down, they spread lies, play the victim, rewrite history, all in a desperate attempt to reestablish their control. But deep down, they know the truth. You were sent into their life not to be another pawn, but to challenge the very foundation of their power. Pain is never wasted. It is never meaningless, never without direction. The suffering you have endured at the hands of a narcissist was not a coincidence, not some random misfortune that fell into your lap. It was intentional. It was a part of a much bigger plan, a plan you may not fully understand yet, but one that has been shaping you from the moment you stepped into that storm. You see, when you go through pain, especially the kind inflicted by a narcissist, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the relentless attempts to break your spirit, it changes you. It forces you to question everything, to strip away illusions, to dig deep into places within yourself that you never thought you would have to visit. And that kind of pain, it doesn't just wound, it transforms. At first, it might feel like destruction, like everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and human nature has been shattered into pieces. But here's the thing about brokenness. It is the birthplace of strength. You don't rise from the ashes without first being burned. You don't gain wisdom without first being tested. And you don't discover your own resilience until you've had every reason to give up, but didn't. Your pain was a lesson, not a life sentence. It was a refining fire, stripping away the parts of you that were too willing to bend, too eager to please, too afraid to walk away. It revealed the cracks in your boundaries, the places where you gave too much, the moments when you should have chosen yourself, but didn't. And once you saw it, really saw it, you couldn't unsee it. But this pain, this heartbreak, this betrayal, it wasn't just about you. It was about the people you would go on to help, the wisdom you would pass down, the strength you would embody. It was about shaping you into someone who could stand tall in the face of manipulation, someone who could recognize toxicity before it took root, someone who could turn their wounds into wisdom. Because the truth is, some lessons can only be learned through pain. Some wisdom can only be earned by walking through fire. And what you went through, it wasn't for nothing. It wasn't wasted. It wasn't in vain. Your pain has a purpose. Truth is a force that cannot be silenced. It may be ignored, resisted, or even attacked, but it cannot be erased. And you are a vessel of that truth. You were placed in the narcissist's life not to play their game, not to feed their ego, but to reveal something they have spent their entire existence trying to avoid. See, narcissists thrive on illusion. They build their world on carefully crafted lies about themselves, about others, about reality itself. They manipulate, distort, and rewrite the narrative so that they always come out on top, always appear untouchable, always maintain control. But the moment you stepped in, something shifted because you carried something they feared: authenticity. You didn't just accept their version of the story, you questioned it. You didn't just nod along to their self-importance, you saw through it. You didn't just play along with their endless need for validation, you recognized the emptiness behind it. And that terrified them. Because a narcissist's greatest enemy is the truth. It strips away their carefully constructed facade. It reveals the cracks in their confidence, the wounds they desperately try to cover, the deep-rooted insecurity that fuels their every action. They live in a world where deception is survival, so when someone like you comes along, someone who refuses to be fooled, someone who speaks with clarity, someone who cannot be manipulated, it is a direct threat to their existence. That's why they fought you so hard. That's why they gaslighted you, tried to make you question yourself, twisted your words, projected their flaws onto you. They weren't just trying to control you. They were trying to protect themselves from seeing the truth, from seeing themselves through your eyes. But here's the thing, the truth always rises, no matter how. And if that cycle isn't broken, it continues, it spreads. It reaches into the next generation, shaping more minds, breaking more spirits, poisoning more hearts. But when God puts awareness in someone, when he gives you the eyes to see the pattern, the wisdom to recognize it, and the courage to walk away, That's a sign that he's using you as the turning point. Now, breaking a cycle is not easy. It takes everything in you to unlearn what you were taught, to refuse to respond the way you were conditioned, to separate yourself from behaviors and people that once felt normal but were never healthy. It takes spiritual strength to heal from wounds you didn't cause. It takes faith to stand in the middle of the storm and say it ends here. But when you do, you aren't just changing your own life, you're changing everything that comes after you. You may be the first in your family to choose peace over chaos, the first to choose healing over revenge, the first to say, I refuse to let this define me, the first to raise children who won't grow up under the shadow of manipulation, the first to walk away without looking back. That's not a small thing. That's legacy work. That's the kind of change that echoes through generations. And here's the thing, when God calls you to break a cycle, he gives you everything you need to do it. You may feel weak, but he is giving you strength. You may feel lost, but he is guiding your steps. You may feel alone, but you are never abandoned. Because when you stand against something that has been moving unchecked for generations, you are not standing alone. God is standing with you. And if God is for you, then nothing, no person, no narcissist, no generational curse can stand against you. Your story is not just about you, the battles you have fought, the pain you have endured, the lessons you have learned. These things were never meant to stay hidden. They were meant to be shared. Because somewhere out there, someone is standing where you once stood, feeling the same confusion, the same heartbreak, the same sense of being lost in a storm they don't understand. And your story is the light that can guide them out. See, pain doesn't just disappear, it transforms. It either turns into wisdom, strength, and purpose, or it hardens into bitterness and resentment. And the difference is what you do with it. If you take what you've been through and use it to uplift, to teach, to inspire, then suddenly your suffering wasn't for nothing. Suddenly it has meaning, it has power, it has the ability to change lives. When you've survived a narcissist, you've walked through fire. You've been burned, tested, and refined. And when you make it out on the other side, when you heal, when you rebuild yourself into someone stronger, wiser, and unshakable, that's when you become the proof that others need to see. The proof that survival is possible, that healing is real, that life after the storm is more beautiful than they ever imagined. And don't think for 1 second that people aren't watching. They may not say it, they may not admit it, but people are looking at your strength, your resilience, your ability to rise above what was meant to break you. They see the way you carry yourself differently, the way you refuse to be pulled back into toxic cycles, the way you choose peace over drama, wisdom over reaction, self-respect over manipulation. And whether you realize it or not, that inspires. You never know who is waiting for your story. You never know who needs to hear that they are not alone, that they are not crazy, that they can escape, heal, and thrive just like you did. Because for every person who speaks out, there are thousands still suffering in silence, still questioning their worth, still believing they have to stay trapped in a cycle they never deserved. And when they hear your story, when they see that you made it out, that you refuse to let the pain define you, something inside of them will shift. A spark will light up. A seed of hope will be planted. That's why your story matters. That's why your voice matters. Because it's not just about the past you've overcome, it's about the future you're shaping for yourself and for everyone who hears you. So why did God put you in the narcissist's life? To show them truth, to challenge their power, to grow you into the person you were always meant to be. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a punishment. This was preparation. And now you rise. Now you move forward. Now you walk in the power that was always yours. Because the best way to defeat a narcissist, the best way to reclaim your life is to thrive without them. And that, my friend, is exactly what you were born to do. Now go, live, grow, shine. Deeply they try to bury it, no matter how desperately they try to silence it, no matter how much they fight against it, the truth finds a way. And you were the vessel it used. You didn't have to force it. You didn't have to preach it. Your very presence, your unwillingness to be deceived, your quiet refusal to participate in their illusions, that was enough. They may have walked away from you, They may have discarded you like you were nothing. They may have tried to convince themselves that you were the problem, but deep down, in the parts of themselves they refuse to face, they know. They know you saw them for who they really were. They know you carried something they could never possess: realness, integrity, self-awareness. And that, more than anything, is why they feared you. Because you were not just another person in their story. You were the mirror they could not escape, the voice they could not silence, the truth they could not erase. A narcissist thrives on the illusion of power. They need to believe they are in control, that they dictate the terms of every relationship, that they have the ability to elevate or destroy you at will. But the greatest insult to a narcissist, the deepest wound to their ego, is when you outgrow them. When you rise beyond their influence, when you become something they never expected, free. See, a narcissist doesn't want you to heal. They don't want you to move on. They don't want you to find peace, clarity, or success. Because as long as you are hurting, as long as you are doubting yourself, as long as you are stuck in the cycle of trying to prove yourself to them, they still hold power over you. They don't need to be in your life physically to have control over you, mentally and emotionally. They just need to know that you're still affected by them. That's why they plant seeds of self-doubt. That's why they manipulate your emotions, gaslight your reality, and make you question your worth. Because if you believe their version of you, the weak, broken, dependent version, they win. But the moment you step into your growth, the moment you reclaim yourself, the moment you rise, that's when the tables turn. Because nothing tortures a narcissist more than irrelevance. When they can no longer provoke you, when their words no longer hold weight, when their absence in your life brings you peace instead of pain, that is a defeat they cannot accept. Your growth is their greatest loss because it proves something they never wanted to face. They never had power over you. They only had the power you gave them. They only had control when you believed their lies. They only mattered when you needed their validation. But once you wake up to the truth, once you take your healing into your own hands, once you realize that you were never weak, just conditioned to think you were, you take back everything they tried to steal. And here's the kicker: they will see it, or they will notice. Even if they pretend not to care, even if they act indifferent, even if they discard you like you were nothing, they are watching. Maybe not directly, maybe through whispers, maybe through mutual connections, maybe just through the silent realization in their own mind. But trust this. They will know. They will know that you became someone they could never break. That's why they try so hard to keep you small, because the moment you rise, the moment you step into your power, the moment you become untouchable to them, they lose. And for someone who built their identity on being the center of your world, that loss is something they will never be able to accept. Some battles are bigger than you. Some struggles didn't start with you, and they won't end with you unless you decide to stand up and break the cycle. See, a narcissist isn't just one person causing pain. They are often the product of an unhealed history, a generational pattern of manipulation, control, and emotional wounds that have been passed down like an inheritance. But here's the truth. God chose you to be the one who ends it. Think about that for a second. Out of all the people in your bloodline, out of all the generations before you, God put the awareness, the strength, and the resilience inside of you. You're the one who sees the toxicity for what it is. You're the one who feels the weight of the dysfunction. You're the one who refuses to pass down the same pain you were handed. That's not a coincidence. That's divine selection. That's God saying, this stops with you. See, a narcissist doesn't come out of nowhere. They were shaped by something, maybe by their own pain, their own trauma, their own unhealed wounds that turned into cycles of control and manipulation.